Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Little child, little child, little child, won't you dance with me?
All right, welcome back to The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer on CL 650. Today we're talking about family law, relationships breaking down, and we're focusing for the most part on children. This is the real heartstrings one for a lot of families are breaking up. David Halkett is a partner at McQuarrie Hunter in Surrey, and associate Sarah Morse is joining us here today. And so when you said you get a divorce about money, you say when both parties are unhappy, you kind of know you've got the sweet spot. Because if somebody really feels like they've won and they high five when they leave court, and the other one's not going to be happy. Is it the same with children? Like, how do you know when you've got the right balance?
Well, that's a tough one, Zach, because obviously I don't know the children when they come in. I go by what the parents say. It's a tough one. They know what's best for their children themselves, and that can vary from basically one parent not having any time with the child if the guy was abusive or the mother was abusive or had drug or alcohol issues. But for the most part, if they can agree on what a schedule will be, I usually tell them, look, you'll get used to it over time. It may not be what you wanted, but you will get used to it. And I find this sounds really sexist, but the mothers hate giving up the time, not as much, I think, because they don't think that it's right. They feel that if they don't have the primary care, some of their friends who do may think they mustn't be a good mother.
Oh, interesting.
Because my rule of thumb is, and I haven't tested it in case law or anything like that, but my rule of thumb is worst mom on the planet who doesn't have any kind of drug issues will get 50% of the time. Best dad will get 50% of the time. Usually, for me, and a lot of people I know, when I just ask them that aren't family law lawyers, what do you think if the children all live with the dad? Well, there must be something wrong with the mom. No one ever says that when they live with the mom. There must be something wrong with the dad. So I think that women will usually take less money to have more time with the children, whereas men they want more time with the children, so they pay less.
Really?
In a lot of cases. Yeah. And I test a lot of my clients who say they want half time with the children if they're the dad, and I'll say, well, if you got your half time and she wanted the full rate of child support, would you be willing to pay it? If they say yes, then I know they want their time with the children. If they say, well, I want my reduction, I'm thinking, okay, it's as much for reduction as it is for having time.
What does that say about us men, Sarah? What does that say?
I don't think I'm allowed to say it on the radio, am I?
It goes both ways, of course, but it tends to be that's just my own experience.
Yeah, I mean, my cases tend to be a little bit different. I'm definitely seeing more of the shared parenting. I think the
That's
tricky.
better though, right?
It is. It's a good trend. I think. I think a relationship with both parents obviously is going to benefit the child or children. I think the trickiest thing that I'm finding on a lot of my files is what schedule is going to work best. Yeah. And so many of your clients come to you and say, "Well, what's a good schedule?" And I'll sometimes help because I've been through this myself, and I'll tell them a little bit about how I've managed it and what some of the considerations are.
That's a big part of it, is the holding their hand, right, through this process?
And the tough part is not everyone works the same schedule. Mm-hmm. So you may have a situation like my wife and I, if this happened to us, we both work Monday to Friday.
Right.
So it's easy to work out. But you can have a nurse who's married to a fireman.
And they're both doing 4 on, 4 off kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If they're 4 on, 4 off or on the opposite times, it works perfectly. But you also don't want to drop the child off if someone's just coming off at night.
No, that's not fair. Yeah.
So it's a tough one trying to balance those schedules. Then they have their activities, and then one parent will say, well, you're always putting activities on my time, where you're a parent who can go to them. The judge will say there's nothing wrong with you going to watch Johnny's taekwondo or Johnny's hockey game. But this working out the schedule can be tough. Some will actually sit there and count hours to make sure they get up to a certain amount of time to reduce potentially what their maintenance is. I'm just getting that a bit less lately. They're just picking days. But yeah, that can be a tough one, figuring out what is best for this child.
Now, what happens when you do have that 50-50 split and you're talking about support? So how do you divvy the money at 50-50? Like, you must get a lot of times where it's saying, well, I'm paying for the taekwondo and I'm paying for the soccer and I'm paying, like, how do you... The cost of a child, needs new shoes, clothes, braces, all that. How does that work?
Well, if the child is shared equally and the parents make similar income, that's sort of the ideal scenario because then
support.
there's no support paid, and
But you have to be able to have a mechanism to split the costs, right? Does everybody just put the receipts in at the end of the and
you can
split
do
it?
either. You can work it in many different ways. For example, if you're setting it up through a separation agreement, you can agree that both parents are just going to share the costs equally, and so you'll consult about it and set it up that way. Or you can agree. Some parents say, "Well, I'll pay for soccer. You'll pay for swimming." It really is going to depend on how amicable the parties are, and again, discrepancies in income and things like that. So there's a lot of factors that come into that, and so you really need to get that information out of your client when you're meeting with them as to how you're going to structure that.
And for the normal day-to-day expenses, that usually comes out of maintenance.
Yep.
If no maintenance paying is, then either you decide we're just going to split the cost of the Air Jordans, say, for example, that my son just graduated into, and from the
Lucky you.
yeah, I was going to say from the
How much are those?
they're about 200.
Wow.
And-
Well, my kids scrub through their toes are pointing out the end after
Yep.
about 6 weeks. So.
Oh, I know, I was saying to Sarah, I said, enjoy your daughter when she's like 5.
Five and a half, where I get to pick her clothes and
Yeah,
shoes.
I said mine used to just pick whether or not they had Thomas the Tank Engine or like
yeah. Bob the Builder T-shirt.
exactly.
There you go, yeah.
Now it's like the other. But you know, when there's no maintenance being paid, if they're half time and similar incomes, they may work out a situation where they split the costs of the clothes and stuff, or they may just pay for the stuff when they're at yours. They keep one set of clothes at your house, one at the other. It's very fact driven and very family oriented.
But they're going to go where the Air Jordans are.
Yeah, that's always that was the basis.
Because then you get arguments where say the wife is saying it's ridiculous that we're spending $200+ on a pair of runners. We can get a pair of runners for $60.
Or
I know.
I bought these shoes. They didn't come back in little Johnny's
Yeah.
bag, and
that happens all the time. And so you know it's a tough one. And I've always had one say, well, I buy all these clothes. Well, when you're assuming for the moment you're paying maintenance to the other party, you don't have to buy them clothes. That's what maintenance is for. So there's always these little arguments that kick in.
Yeah, but then you get in the situation where I'm giving you maintenance to buy them shoes and clothes, and then the other parent is like, well, no, that's like you. So some people just, well, I mean, the worst case scenario, they're using it to support their lifestyle, not just for the child. Like they maybe get a nicer house or a nicer condo or something, right?
Although what the court and the law would say on that is that's benefiting the child in having a better lifestyle. The law,
but out of that maintenance, you're still supposed to be able to buy them clothes.
Yeah, well, that all factors into your pot of income. Nowhere in the law does it say that the money that I give you for maintenance has to get earmarked right
to
for
the child. Okay.
It just goes into overall
general revenue,
income,
right,
Yeah.
so to speak.
That's the way the tax system works.
Yeah, exactly.
We need a new transit line. All right. So, what about? Have you had any same-sex divorces? I mean, the right to get married is great. You also have the right to get divorced.
Not yet.
I haven't done a same-sex divorce. I have had same-sex couples who have separated and divided their assets up. I did it even before they were allowed automatically to divide assets under the changes of the Family Law Act. Because it used to be same-sex couples were just able to claim under another trust law for division. But I've had a situation where there's been two moms arguing over parenting time, and the same issues
It's
arise.
all the same stuff.
It's just that both parties are the same sex. That's the only difference.
Are there any other above and beyond regular maintenance issues?
There are, yeah. You have daycare costs.
Daycare costs is a
sporting costs,
huge one.
extracurriculars.
Well, I hear stories of $2,500 a month for daycare in Vancouver.
Well, and the issue is it gets into the reasonableness of it. I mean, because there is such a range, and I have a child in out of school care, and so I sort of know what the cost is. But there's people that don't know, is $1,000 a month reasonable? Is $2,500 reasonable? Does a child have a right to be going to a Montessori versus a home run daycare for half the cost? So you do get into a lot of arguments, and it comes down to, is it reasonable?
Exactly.
I mean, you can't just say, well, my kid needs to go to the best out of school care in the city at a cost
Like a
of
private school or something, right?
Yeah.
And
so just because we only got about 2 minutes left, so in this situation where you have maybe someone listening to this and they have children and they're thinking of breaking up, what's your advice, overarching advice in this situation?
Well, first of all, I think what they need to do is contact a lawyer and get legal advice as to what possibilities will occur after the separation. Then, once they have the advice, they can talk to their spouse and see if they can work out at least a schedule for the children, even a preliminary basis.
So coming in with a sort of a template is a good idea?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's useful, like, and set out your questions as to what you want to know. Like, what is guardianship? What is this? How are we going to decide what school the child goes to? You know, where is the child going to live? If they can work out a schedule, great. If not, come in and know what to ask the lawyer when they come in.
Saving time saves money, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, it's been fascinating. I'm going to go and give my wife a big hug when I get home.
Exactly. You do that.
You're the best.
Yeah.
What do you? Let's go shopping. Let's
Yep.
go buy you something nice. This is the Law Show. We're talking about the breakdown of it's not all about money and purses, but it doesn't hurt, right, Sarah?
It does not hurt. No.
We've been speaking with David Halkett. He's a partner at McQuarrie Hunter, and Sarah Morrison, associate. McQuarrie Hunter is based in Central City in Surrey, above the SFU campus there. It's been great having you on. We're going to have you back and talking about family law. It's fascinating. A bit scary, but that's why you're here to help steer us through it. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
I'm Zach Spencer. Thanks for listening. This is The Law Show on CL 650.